Welcome back to class. Today, or now, we're going to look at a couple of phrasal verbs using the verb put. So, phrasal verbs we know are not the problem in English, but it's definitely one of the biggest challenges. Forgetting grammar, phrasal verbs are everywhere. Like idiomatic expressions, they're difficult to understand on their own, and you have to have context to make it work. And they're fun. They really are. And there's a lot of them. I have some of my students are not advanced speakers, but yeah, fairly advanced speakers. And the classes they do with me are only based on phrasal verbs, just because there's so much area to cover. And it's so much fun to be able to use this language well. Not just as well, like remember, there are two reasons we learn. We learn a million phrasal verbs so that you can understand them and you can listen to other people's stories and you can share an experience. Then there are the phrasal verbs that you will use to tell your story. So remember that in some classes, you will say, teacher, I forget everything. I can't remember the things you told me last lesson. I can't remember anything. Yeah, because that lesson wasn't for you. That lesson was for your brain. You learn 1,000,000, 2,000,000, 5,000,000 words, not so you can use them, but so you can understand them. Your experience in this world, you're going to meet 1,000,000 people. And those 1,000,000 people, all of them have their little box of vocabulary to describe their world. And that's maybe about 200 or 300 words at the most, just like you. You have a little box that you can describe your world. Every single person does. So our brain can learn all of those words, all of them. It's not an infinite space, but it's a ridiculous amount of space we have in our brain. And our brain learns not the definition of a word. Our brain learns words in context. Our brain only really understands this abstract construct of language. Our brain doesn't remember individual definitions and then apply them. No, our brain sees and understands a moment and here's a piece of language that describes that moment and understands the use of that word based on what you see and what you feel in that time. And therefore, we can understand it in the future when we hear it. And sometimes we can use it unconsciously. We can use words that we would never use in our normal day because we saw that picture and we felt that same way about it. And our brain said, well, this is how we describe that situation. As a writer, that's how it works with me. I don't choose what I'm going to write ever. My brain does it automatically. It's a fun little relationship we have. My job as the writer is not to write, it's to edit. That's where I do what I do. I let my brain write 1,000 words on a page, and then I go back and say, that's not good. How can we look at that better? How can we say that better? But the first process is never me. It's my brain. I try to help my brain imagine a picture. My brain puts the language that's responsible. So, the lesson, just very quickly before we get into the phrasal verb today, on that is there's always two students. There's the student who needs to learn everything. That is your cerebellum, your brain. That requires millions and millions and millions of words, vocabulary in context. Then there is you. You only need the language to describe your world. And your world, if you want to know where is it, it's in your head. 95 percentages, anytime anyone tells you a percentage, it's a load of shit. But like most, if not all, of the conversations you have every day happen in here, in the theater of you. You are the actor, you're the only actor on the stage playing every character, playing every role, wearing every mask. You're having thousands and thousands of conversations and playing scene after scene in your head. You know the vocabulary you need. You know your world. So that vocabulary that goes around in your head is a language that you need to describe the world that's important to you. So that's what you need in English, or in Spanish, or in German, or in Gaelic, or whatever language it is. On the other side, we learn a million verbs and you will forget them all because they're not for you. They're for your brain. And before you think that you're amazing and you do everything, yes, you're amazing, but also no, you're not. Your brain does everything. You don't think, therefore you are. No, you have a brain and it thinks. You experience a brain thinking, and therefore you experience yourself thinking you think that you are. But you are not. No, you are not. Your brain is. Your brain does everything. When you have an idea, the idea wasn't something you created, your brain did. You experienced your brain having an idea. And so we learn all those words simply because we can experience them with other people. So if you learned a million words but you don't use it and you're angry, well, go meet someone new. Listen to their stories. That's why you have those words. And look, the same we can say for your own memories and experiences. You can't remember the things that happened to you when you were 4, 5, 7, 13, 17, 22, yesterday before lunch. You can't. You don't get access to your memory. If you think I'm lying, try right now. Tell me 18 fantastic movies. You can't. At best, you can think of 2 or 3, but you're not thinking of those. Your brain is giving you those. Your brain's like, fuck it, just give them Pride and Prejudice, The Matrix, and The Muppets. But you can't access 18. Yet if I name 18 movies, Goodfellas, Bad Taste, whatever it might be, you go, oh yeah, that one, yeah, that one, yeah, that one. Yeah, because your brain is mirroring. When I say those movies, your brain goes, ooh, well, we know that movie. We know that movie. We know that movie. The same thing with your memories from your childhood. If I were to tell you a story about a time I fell off my bike, you'll say, oh, that happened to me too. You will never have that memory without me. You will never experience that memory without me. That's why it's so important as people to meet new people, to share stories. When I meet you, I meet myself. The world is a mirror. When you tell me stories about you, I remember stories about me. And when I remember stories about me, I find myself again. I'm like, holy shit, that's right, I did that too. And you start to smile because you start to remember your own story. You can't tell your own story without someone else who'll listen. And so that's why it's so important. That's why language is so important. We learn a million verbs not so you can be articulate and sound like you can say everything. No. You learn a million verbs so you can read a book and you can see the story. Your brain has all of the tools it needs to write that story for you. Yeah. You are the director, kind of saying this way and that way, cut and fucking whatever it is. But your brain is the gaffer. Your brain is the sound engineer. Your brain is all of those thousands of people doing small, intricate jobs out on a production site that the director doesn't even think about unless they make a mistake. You know, that's you. So that's why we learn those two verbs. And inside a classroom, you have to remember the relationship between the two. You're there not for you. You're there for your brain. You're there also not so you can tell your story. You're there so you can listen to the stories of others. And that is how you'll grow. Sharing experiences. So, let's get past all that bullshit. And let's look at today's lesson. We're going to look at the phrasal verb put. We're going to look at, how many have I got here? 1, 2, 3. We're going to look at 4 versions of put. As a verb on its own, we know with our verbs, oh, Kian, would you be the slightest bit prepared for your fucking videos? My God, my apologies. I'm saying that to a camera. But then you're watching this thinking I'm saying it to you, so this is weird. Every sentence we have, no matter how complicated your idea, generally, it's a subject, our protagonist. Remember, the protagonist can either be the hero or the villain because they are the doer of the action. They are Batman or the Joker. Then we have a verb, of course. because they are manipulating something, and our object is always the victim. It is the receiver of the action. It's either getting hugs and kisses, or it's getting kicked out the front door and it has to sleep in the rain. It's either feeling love and compassion, or it's a victim of an unjust and unfair world. That's all there is. In psychology, in storytelling, that's it. There are only three characters that can possibly exist. And you can become all of those three characters. If you do something good in your life, you are the victim. You are the doer of that action. Yay, me. If you fuck up, you're the villain. What the fuck did I do that for? God damn it. Fuck's sake. Or you're the victim. This is fucked, man. This is unfair. This always happens. This world is unjust and unfair. That's it. That's all there ever is. So we know there's only three verbs. Three parts of our sentence. Sometimes we have a verb. We call it Jesus, I forget. First of all, grammar terms. Fuck the names of grammar. Grammarians understand grammar, but guess what? Grammarians don't know how to write books. Isn't that beautiful? No one remembers the names of grammar and all these fancy little words. No. If you want to be a good communicator, keep it simple. Don't worry about the names of grammar rules and grammar structure and things like that. Don't try to be fancy. Try to be clear. Try to paint a picture. You don't need to know how electrons work to watch a television. In the same way, you don't need to know all the names of grammar to be a really good communicator, an effective communicator. So let's not hero worship the names of grammar and what grammar actually is. Grammarians are hyper-focused engineers. They are. But an engineer is nothing without an architect. Not at all. They both work together. That's why you get a grammarian you pay a grammarian to edit your book. But the grammarian will never be able to write a book themselves. They don't know how. They only know how to look at something that's finished and to point out the parts in that thing. But they don't know how to create something from nothing themselves. That's me picking on grammarians. And that's me just justifying because I can't remember the name of the fucking thing I was going to say. So fuck it. Let's look at this verb. Oh yeah, transitive and intransitive. Transitive, what? That's like when a verb requires an object. Or is that intransitive? I think intransitive is I run, and transitive is I kicked the ball. Intransitive means that it doesn't require an object at all, and transitive means that the verb needs an object. So with put, as a verb on its own, it has no meaning. Put requires not just an object, but it requires a preposition. Put is one verb that has to be a phrasal verb. It does. It has to. I don't think there's any way you can use this verb that's not a phrasal verb. So in this case, what we're going to look up, the first one we'll say is to put up. So in this first example, we'll say, I'll be in town for the weekend. Ah, shit. Can you put me up for the night? So in this case, I split my phrasal verb like a sandwich. So to put up, and I put the object pronoun inside. With this put up, we're always going to split it. I'm not going to say, can you put up? Well, we kind of can, but we always split this one. So what does it mean to put me up? Well, that means this is the same way of me saying, can I crash at your place? Say, can. You literally mean like drive a car into a wall? Yes. No, not drive a car into a wall, but what's to crash mean? To crash means, well, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do some things. Maybe you're going to go to a bar, you're going to get drunk. Maybe you're going to go to a library and read books. But either way, you just want to come home to that person's place and sleep on the sofa. They don't have to be a host. They don't have to look after you. You just want like a sofa to sleep on or a bed to sleep on. It could be for a day. It could be for a week. When I was, how old was he? I think I was 25. A buddy from work put me up for 6 months. I was in a rock band, and that didn't work out well. Some guy came to our house with a fucking gun, wanting money. And long story about record contracts, intellectual property contracts, loan agreements, $250,000 Australian, a tour in America, and just everything fucking up. But either way, like when that incident happened, I had nowhere to stay. My friend and I and his partner Jody, my friend Adam, we had to leave our house the next day, and we had no one to look at, no one to stay with, and no one wanted us really because everyone was scared that the mafia was going to come around to their house. Yeah, and as a result, one of my friends from work, I was working in this shitty factory doing fucking terrible work, making concrete retaining walls in the middle of summer in a factory in Australia where the factory's like 60 degrees. Ugh, that was miserable work. I liked it though. And yeah, so he let me stay at his house for 6 months. So he put me up for 6 months. Now, so that's to put someone up. You know, it's just to let someone stay at your property. So we have there like to put up. So what if I add one more word here, to put up with? All right. So I'm Irish, raised in Australia, but I moved to Australia when I was 7. You know, so I have the blood of a drunk, and the blood of a poet and a writer, the gift of the gab. But I also have the spirit to punch kangaroos in the face, climb trees, and eat fucking eucalyptus all day long. But I am Irish, and I have an aversion for the sun. This is going to be an analogy that maybe might make half of my listeners fucking hate me. By half, I mean like there's just you, and half of you is going to laugh at this joke, and half of you is going to think, what the fuck? So here's the thing, I'm Irish. I live in a very hot city. I live in a city called Araraquara. Here it's summer all day long. Every day it's summer. There's like 2 days of winter per year, and that's it. But it's like 35, 38 degrees every day. It's a city for lizards, not for normal people, and definitely not for Irish. The sun to an Irishman is like a Catholic priest to a pretty young boy. Yeah, I go outside for a second and I get molested. So the sun to me is my mortal enemy. You know, I respect it the same way you might respect that Catholic priest, but you're sure going to keep your fucking distance. And so for me, I have to put up with the sun. So what do we mean by this? I have to put up with the sun. So first of all, we're always saying I have to. And I have to is not an obligation. I have to means I have no choice. And have no choice means it does not matter how you feel. That's important. You can feel angry, frustrated, everything. You know, shut the fuck up. You have to, okay? Okay. So the things you have to, you learn to put up with. And to put up with is to accept. Essentially, it's to accept. Things you cannot change, you learn to live with. You learn to adapt emotionally. You don't get angry, you don't get frustrated. You find a way to live with this. In Portuguese, we'll say like conviver with something. So these are things always I have to put up with. We can look at the negative. So I used to live in Sao Paulo. Now Sao Paulo, beautiful city, but maniacal. A lot of people, very dangerous, a lot of traffic, a lot of violence, a lot of pollution, just a lot of noise. Same time, just beautiful city, just beautiful city. Because I love all those things. I love the violence, I love the pollution, I love the noise. But now I live in the countryside, a very small city in the countryside. So it's very quiet. So I don't have to put up with traffic. I don't have to put up with violence. There's a little more recently, but in general, compared to Sao Paulo, no, I don't have to put up with. Now, I'm going to use this word here because we don't have this in English. I don't know what language you listen to, if you speak Spanish or Norwegian, but folgados. If you're Brazilian right now, you'll probably laugh. Folgado is fuck. How do you? Like, I know what a folgado looks like. I know what they do. I know them when I see them in public, but it's like a ghost. I can't explain to you what they're made out of. I can't explain to you what they are. Folgado is like your. So okay, I'll explain. I had a neighbor in when I lived in São Caetano, Santander, in São Paulo. I just named 3 fucking cities. Fuck it. When I lived there, if you live there, you'd know it's just all the same fucking thing, but you're on a line. I used to work from. I had this neighbor who had. He was obviously a banker or something. We lived on a nice street. At that time, I was doing okay with money, but not spending it properly. And so this guy, every time he'd go to work, his alarm would start ringing in his house. Wow, wow, wow. Just intense, loud, and violent from like 9 a.m. Until he got home at like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, depending on his traffic. And it was intense. I lost students because of this, because I used to have presential classes. Students couldn't handle the noise. It was horrible. Then one day, he came home from work, and I went up to him. I just kind of went out in the street and said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm your neighbor. I live across the way." And he said, "Oh, nice to meet you." I said, "Yeah, look, your alarm, I don't know if you know this, but your alarm is going off every day, all day, every day." And at first, we would look out, and the other neighbors, we'd make sure no one was breaking into your house. But now, everyone just closes their windows. And I don't know if you've heard the story of the boy who cried wolf, but one day you're going to actually have someone who breaks into your house, and no one is going to look, and no one is going to call the police. And look, it's really frustrating because we can't think, we can't work in our houses. And the guy said, "Oh, look, I'm really sorry. Yeah, man." And then as soon as he closed the gate, he said, "Fuck you, vai tomar no cu." That's folgado. That person who takes advantage of other people, that as well, like ignoring other people and only thinking about themselves. You might say they're selfish, and in English we'll have many ways to describe a person. But goddamn, Brazilians are good with their substantivos, with their nouns. They really are. We create just a word that describes that fucking perfectly. You say folgado, everyone goes, "Oh, yeah." Everyone knows at least 17 that are like this. So, but I live in the countryside now. In the countryside, I am known as not gringo. I am o gringo, because I'm the only fucking gringo in this city. And I'm covered in tattoos, and I have a mohawk, and I have a goatee, and neck tattoos. So I'm very noticeably o gringo. So for that reason, everyone's visible here. In the countryside, you can't be folgado. Because if you steal a parking space from a person, or if you cut someone off in traffic, or whatever it might be, you're going to see that person again at the supermarket or everywhere else. So they act in a sense of transparency. They're polite, they respect the rules. So in the countryside, I don't have to put up with folgados. Everyone kind of respects that idea. I don't have to put up with pollution or noise. Now, so we looked at things I have to put up with. I can't change that. I have to put up with the heat. I have to put up with the sun. There are things that I don't have to put up with. That's fantastic. And then we'll look at things that, well, I don't put up with. What's that mean? Well, we're humans. We put up with a lot. We do. We adapt to the worst situations possible. Absolutely. And we always find a good way out of it. Always. We always see the brighter side of things. That's how fucking insane we are. It's beautiful. No matter what situation we're in, we adapt. But there are some things that we don't put up with. And that's where you put your foot down and you intervene. So obviously, not to sound like a woke asshole, but yeah, I don't put up with like blatant racism. And that goes for like, if I have ever had students, and I have come across people who are like openly racist, I said, sorry man, you're I get it that it's weaknesses, but we can't have that. And if you do, we can't have classes. Homophobia is a little different because usually that person is gay, and you can't get angry at someone for being homophobic because they're just scared about their sexuality. It's like getting angry at someone for being scared of spiders. You know, when someone is homophobic, you have to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to be gay. You know, even if they communicate that fear as anger towards others, they're just looking for a hug. That's all. So I can't get too angry at that, but at the same time, I don't put up with that. I don't put up with bullshit. In my classes, it's always happy shit or miserable when we go on self kind of introspective journeys and we encounter our shadows. Ooh, heavy shit. But in my house, so I got two little monsters, Nina and Tomas. Love them both to death. We have one rule in my house, and that's simple. Everything is forgivable. How the fuck do you spell that word? Forgivable. Here's the thing. There you go. Here's the thing for if you're learning a language, and as well if you're a teacher. It's okay to spell things wrong. It's okay to have shitty grammar, and it's okay as well to say that to your student, you know, and to find out the right answers. None of us know what we're doing with language or with life. Don't pretend. Don't pretend to your kids either. They'll figure it out. They know you're lying. So in my house, we have a rule. Everything is forgivable. I don't care what you did. Everything is forgivable. Everything. So like I said, in my house, we don't have timeout. We don't have castigo. We don't do any of that bullshit. That all I ever ask to my kids, if one of them hit the other, if one of them threw my phone in a toilet, you know, both kids have to put their hand out flat, and then they have to put their hands on top of my hands. You know, I put mine out, they put their hands on top, and all I ask is that they look me in the eyes and tell me what they did. That's it. There's no, and it's just that simple. Dad, I threw your phone in the toilet. Dad, I borrowed $600 and bought a helicopter and crashed it into the neighbor's house. No matter what it is, that's all they have to do. And when they do, they get a hug. And then they go back. I never take away PlayStations. They don't have PlayStations. I never take away Xboxes. I never take away phones. I never take away toys. They're not yours to take away. You fucking gave them, you asshole. I'm calling me an asshole there. But they're not yours to take away. That's not how we learn. The fear of having things taken from us, that doesn't motivate us to go forward. No. It's that everything is forgivable. What I want from my children is that they admit their wrongs. And usually when they do, when they tell me out loud what they did, they cry because they feel shame. And then through that shame, they're able to change, evolve, and to understand and empathy and grow as people. So we have this simple rule. Everything is forgivable. It doesn't matter what you did. And for that reason, when you know you're going to get a hug out of it, well, then you admit what you did. And when you admit what you did as well, you feel better. There's nothing worse than carrying around guilt and blame. You know, you have to absolve yourself of that. Not for them. Saying sorry to another person has nothing to do with them. It's only you. And as well, they don't have to say you're like it's okay. Everyone is responsible for how they feel. You're not responsible for how another person feels, even if you did something wrong to them. And they're not responsible for how you feel. You don't owe anyone an apology, and they don't owe you one. Get that through your head. How you feel about the world is your responsibility. If you're going around the world offended, well, that's your fault. You are in control of your suffering. You are the one who decided to be offended. Nobody owes you an apology for that. And you can't cancel people because you're offended, because you have become addicted and built a fragile mindset. That's not anyone else's fault. You're responsible for how you feel, always. So, if you know that in my house, no matter what you do, there's got to be a hug at the end of it. Probably you're going to end up doing bad shit like my dog stealing my underwear. But it's forgivable. The only thing I don't put up with is lying. That's it. The only thing that pisses me off is if my kids lie to me. The only thing that pisses me off is when my dog steals my underwear, rips them to pieces, leaves them outside the front window, and then pretends he didn't do it. I need to see those ears coming down. I need to see a sense of shame and regret on his face. I go, oh, fuck. I knew it when I was doing it that this was not the right fucking idea. I need to see that. That sense of honesty is good. It's beautiful. I don't like lying. So that's the only thing I don't put up with. And so when we don't put up with it, we put our foot down and we say, hey, no, I don't accept that in one other way. But in our society, in our culture, we put up with a lot of stuff. You put up with everything. You put up with neighbors. You put up with your bosses. You put up with your friends. If you're in a relationship, you put up with things your boyfriend or girlfriend do that drive you insane. But that's what love is. Love is about going and putting up with it, because that's what we do as human beings. So that is to put up with and to put up. I was going to do one more, but I'm going to leave that for another day because that's already a long enough class, and I went on tangents in that one. Jesus Christ. All right, listen, as usual, love the people who love you. Everyone else is just a piece of shit. I'll see you in the next video.